Were you excited by all the Serie A action this weekend? Not as much as Bernabeu was. Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. As always, my name's Rory, and I'm joined by my very good friends, Adam, and a slightly pissed off Andrea, fresh from the final whistle. Andrea, how we doing, man?
I prefer not to speak. No, I'm okay. I'm still trying to figure out everything, so my head's all over the place at the moment. But happy to be on the pod at least.
Nice. We'll give you a few minutes to settle. Don't worry, Adam. How you doing, man?
I want more of that. I'm good. I'm very good, thank you. Very chilled out weekend, given it was my birthday celebrations as well. Turning the ripe age of 21, as I try to remind myself. But
Auguri.
Yeah, auguri. But thank you very much, and keeping very well. How are things in Milan? More importantly, Rory.
All good. I'm ignoring the existence of the FA Cup. I'm ignoring the existence of Arsenal, and I'm focusing completely on Serie A. So I'm all good. Yeah, everything good here. Back in the full swing of things. Delighted to be talking about Serie A. But if you haven't had time to catch up on the happenings in Serie A, our intro was linked to classic Serie A story. Bernabeu, the Spaniard who tames the eagle at Lazio, a very controversial figure, has just got a little bit more controversial and has now been fired. So he's the guy who lets the eagle off before the game. It flies around the stadium and lands back on his arm. Well, he's recently undergone some surgery in a fairly sensitive part of his body. He wanted to show off the renovations and did it live on Instagram and has now been sacked by Lazio. He also did this in a state of excitement, so he must have really been enjoying the football this weekend. Adam, it's one of those stories that could only really happen in Serie A. I don't know how the script writers continue to come up with it. It's impressive, right?
I mean, you could never see Daniel Levy trying to do that live on TV. On his head. Let's put it that way. That'd be a different form of cock, wouldn't it? It could only happen in Italy and Serie A. I mean, these stories just don't happen anywhere else. I can't think of any league that does this more dramatically, more hilariously. But it is just a culture. It is Italian football. It is culture, as we call it.
Exactly. Well, Lazio have separated themselves from him and decided there's going to have to be someone else flying their bird around the stadium, I suppose. But there was lots of action to talk about in Serie A this week. As I kind of alluded to, Monza Fiorentina has literally just finished, so we are going to talk about that. We, as in Andrea, because me and Adam haven't been able to see any of it. We will then be talking about which games did we say? Oh, God, I've lost the running order. I'm going to edit this out. Like we have a running order. Where is it? We're going to talk about Milan 1, Cagliari 1. More dropped points for Milan in the league. Not the springboard they wanted post-Supercoppa win. Torino 1, Juve 1. It wasn't all draws, I promise, guys. But Torino with an impressive performance here. Juve unimpressive. Napoli getting a routine 2-0 win against Hellas before we talk about Empoli 1, Lecce 3, as Empoli are getting picked apart by all the vultures. Another bird for you. There we go. So we're going to take another break, or a break, and when we come back, we're going to get started with all the Serie A action. And we are back. It's time to talk all the calcio action, and we're going to start with Monza getting their second win of the season, 2-1 over Fiorentina. Andrea, I'm going to stop laughing now, I promise. But give us a brief overview of just what the hell happened.
So, Monza just played like Monza, and they somehow won. Now, to be fair, I think Monza, I'm going to look at their side first because that'll make it a lot easier. I think Borghetti did real good tactical decisions in the game. So in the first half, although they weren't really in the game, they took the lead just before half time, and he made a clever sub, which I didn't expect, but I think I was worried it was going to backfire, but it actually worked. He took off Pablo Mari and put on Martins to cover the pace of Sotil, and I think it really shut Sotil out the game the second half. And obviously it made him switch to a 4-back instead of a 3. So it was really clever from Borghetti, which is what we haven't really seen so far in his first opening game. So I've got to give him credit for that. And I also think as well that he put on Juric as well as a target man. And I think Fiorentina defence were flapping about. Um, so uh, with like a target man there, so they couldn't really handle him. And again, bringing a lot of fouls in. It was a stop-start game that suited Monza a lot, and they played on it. And yeah, they just done enough to kind of get over the line. On the Fiorentina side, absolutely terrible. I think it just reminisces of last year's Italiano football. It was horrible. It was predictable football, going side to side, using Dodo, using Sotil, and no end product really. Keane barely touched the ball, no service to him. Goodmanson, that's the talking point of the game. He was absolutely awful. I don't know what happened to him. He kept losing the ball. He lost the ball that gave away the first goal to Monza. He got subbed off at half time. So it was just a horrific performance by everyone, to be honest. And it was coming. These type of results are coming. I was saying it even when we were winning that it just seems that they can't stick at it in games. They seem to. It seems to get too predictable when they need to change it up, and when they're chasing leads. Unfortunately, and I've said this before, until we get better options in sub, you're relying on players like Ikone, Kwame. They're not gonna save you, and this is gonna happen time and time again. Fiorentina, this is not gonna be the last time Fiorentina are gonna be losing one or two goals with 20 minutes to go. So it's a real concern because it's gonna happen again at some point.
Well, and this is obviously there was that incredible run of wins and that unbeaten run for Fiorentina, and it really looked like there was something to build on. But now this run of no wins is kind of almost as long at this point now. It's now 5 games without a win in Serie A. Is this leading in again to the predictability of it that Palladino just doesn't have the ideas in order to kind of arrest this and kind of change the performances, change the results?
Yeah, and I think it highlights as well his kind of what he needs to learn as well because again, not really changing the formation, changing the style, like what I was saying just earlier about Monza did. You know, you'd want to see Palladino do something else as well. We were clearly not winning the midfield battle once again, which is another concern. That's 2 or 3 games in a row now where the midfield has been completely dominated. Bondo was unreal today and just dominated that midfield. So he needs to kind of highlight that and again, he could have added maybe Folorunshaw on earlier, or try and change it up a bit. Try and get someone in and around it. Maybe place someone with Moise Kean a bit closer. Colpani hasn't worked on the right the whole season, and again, he's someone I like to see a bit more in the middle. But regardless, it's another question mark. Like you're playing these players in positions that haven't been working, so I feel like he's been too predictable in his lineups, but he's also not been tough enough to actually make those big game changes and be like, you know what, I'm going to take him off and I'm going to play, I don't know, someone next to Keane, going to play 2 up front, change it completely. And again, in this game, it was all like for like changes, and you've got to see more. Although the resources aren't the greatest, you still got to see more kind of change in stylistically, and that's the big concern I think going into the next few games now.
And Adam, obviously we haven't seen the game, right? But let's kind of let's talk anyway. But for Monza, this could kind of be a really big. This is a spark of something, right? This is a moment. They now have to go to Bologna away, then you have Genoa away, but they've got Verona. Like there's 3 games that maybe you could get a couple of points out of. Now there's a bit of positivity.
Yeah. There's potential, right? There's something to grab up your hands on and see if that can build some momentum. I think it's probably still I'm looking at the kind of table right now. You're having to rely on Venezia to drop points really now at this stage, and then beyond that, you're kind of looking at Hellas and Calgary's to kind of start dropping points. So, whilst I suppose it's more achievable to try and make sure you're not on the bottom of the table at this stage, I still feel that Monza need to do more in terms of the transfer market aspect. They need to bring in some quality players, like Andreas alluded to in this particular match. It seems like tactically maybe Bocchetti got it right in terms of what he saw happening in front of him. So that was, I suppose, a credit to him. I think we haven't given him much credit, it's fair to say, since he's joined. But equally, it is down to what we've already highlighted on previous week's podcast, which is they need to get some really experienced heads now into this squad, and they're running out of time at this moment in time. So they need to, over the next 2 to 3 weeks, get some deals going, because at the moment I just don't see any signs at the moment. There's not even any kind of rumours about them signing players. So that I think if I'm a Monza fan, I'm a bit more worried about that. I know I was looking at who's injured right now. You've got likes of Gagliardini, for example, and you've got Pessina, but you can't rely on those players to come and help you out. I think they really do need to get some real good players and attacking ones at the same time, because you can't rely on Maldini being your solitary kind of attacking threat alongside Juric. Although they offer two different dynamics in that respect, they need some quality heads. So good start, but probably not enough to see them out of the relegation zone at this stage anyway.
Yeah, it'll be, look, it's just a massive win for them. I think it's all the games now are kind of free hits for them, because I think most people expect them to go down. So maybe now that lack of pressure a little bit and a little bit of positivity could do them some good. But genuinely hoping Fiorentina can kind of arrest this kind of slump soon enough, because it is turning into a full-on slump. But we're going to leave it there, Andrea. We're going to let you forget about that game for the next 45 minutes or so. And let's talk about the other action this weekend. And let's go over to the San Siro. Adam, we spent all last episode talking about how this was going to be a springboard for Conceição and how Milan were going to make the most of their season, and they were really going to push on. They've got Cagliari at home. I did kind of tongue-in-cheek say Cagliari were going to win. I wasn't a million miles away. It was a hell of a goal. But they did get a point. Let's talk about Cagliari first. Classic Davide Nicola, fight, grit, and a bit of quality.
Yeah, a bit of quality, it was fair to say. Although that bit of quality, I'd say, came at the other end for me. Caprile, what a goalkeeper. He was on such a mission to deny Milan on numerous occasions in that second half, denying the likes of Pulisic, Alvaro Morata, as well as Tammy Abraham. I think Reinders maybe got on the action as well, if I remember rightly. But what a performance from him. He deserves to be like the man of the match for that performance alone. I mean, some of the saves were spectacular. Even that free kick, I think, from Teo really late on, where he can't really see it. He just kind of manages to move his body in the right direction and forces the save, which is just, such a, men behind the ball, kind of backs to the wall kind of stuff. And it was such an effort. But Zorte with the goal, obviously, a lot of question marks over Mike Maignan and his handling for that particular goal. But yeah, Milan had more than enough chances to really win this game. I think that's the moral of the story, is that they should really be putting teams like Calgary to the sword. But that was such an inspired performance from Caprile, and got to hand it to him, because the amount of times that Calgary were kind of opened up, it was just absolutely insane, Rory. So well done to Calgary for the draw in that sense, but also a lot more question marks for Conceição in terms of what he does. But it wasn't for the lack of trying; it was just the lack of it, clinical edge and application, I'd say.
Yeah, no, I've got to say, Caprile, another ex-Empoli goalkeeper, was also on loan at Bari for a season and was unbelievable for Bari. The fact that they were nowhere near as good the season he left is not a coincidence. He's only 23 years old, another really exciting Italian goalkeeper. It's good to see him getting some of the headlines, because he's, like I said, since I've seen him at Bari, I was like, I'm going to keep an eye on this guy's career, because I think he's got a big future in the game. Andrea, what is it that Milan just can't get it over the line? They keep dropping these silly points. Is it just having Morata up front? Is that the problem? Like, how can they not get these results over the line?
I think a lot of it obviously just comes down to the clinical nature of it, as Adam was saying before. I think they had enough chances in this game. Previously, other games under Fonseca, there was a lot of question marks that they weren't doing enough. I felt like in this game they did do more than enough to score the goals. So I think the only concern is that I feel like, especially that last 20 minutes, I just felt like they ran out of ideas, and I feel like they weren't kind of forcing the issue. Kind of almost was kind of like doing kind of the basics right and trying to like go out wide and try and push through. They had some exciting plays, but like I just think they're just missing some sort of spark kind of in that middle to kind of like maybe in that attacking mid kind of player to kind of just bring out more from the players, kind of bring more players into game, because you saw like Leao kind of fade away. you kind of saw Pulisic fade away as well in the game, even though they done pretty well. So I feel like it's trying to find the right balance, but also trying to make sure to bring out players like Hernandez again. I thought Jimenez had a great game as well. So they've got some good players to work with, and they are showing great signs. I wonder if it's just one of those games. If we ignore Fonseca's previous history, I wonder it's just one of those games that they're just on a high after beating the Super Cup or winning that game, and maybe they just weren't. I don't know. Maybe there was just something off. I don't want to say that's an excuse, but I just feel like for once for Milan, I'd have to say that they did well and they were unlucky. On another day, they could have won that game easy, and it's positive at the same time, which is not good. Which is unreal to say considering the scoreline. But I feel like they should walk away positive. But ultimately, football's result business, so it's not the end goal. But I think there's a lot of positive signs. But I also think as well, maybe perhaps like players like Abraham coming on, not making as much of a difference as they should. I don't think they've got really that kind of striker going on. I'd like to see Kamada play more, to be honest, but I think that's another question as well. Kind of who they're bringing on is another thing they've got to look at as well.
I feel like this insistence with Leao as well. I feel like it's not. The season has gone from he's in a bit of bad form to like this is just a bad season now. He's got like 3 goals and 4 assists this season. It's not the numbers you want to be seeing from him by January, right? And I feel like he knows his place is in that team and there's no one there really to threaten him or to take his place. And maybe the next thing for Conceição is to kind of put a fire under him and be like, look, you need to fight for your place in this team and it's not a given. And maybe if Milan managed to bring in a Marcus Rashford on loan, maybe that does give Leao the bit of a kick up the arse of like, you're not guaranteed a spot. Like Adam, it's really turning into a very, very disappointing season for him when before this season, every club in Europe was sniffing around him. I don't know if any are going to be looking at him now.
Yeah, and I think, Milan have always taken that stance with him that, you're not irreplaceable, but, you will help us generate some funds at the same time, whereas I don't think he is any of those right now. It's a worry. I've been, a defender of his, because you can see for performances for Portugal, he can do it. Unfortunately, just bring that consistency to Milan. Obviously, he had his little hissy fits with Fonseca. Now he's just got to really act up. And I suppose maybe like you allude to, maybe that bit of competition may spark that kind of intensity in him. Maybe we might start to see the best of him. I think he's always been relied upon. That's the thing. So this is the difficulty when you're the person that's only there. Sometimes it is very easy to get carried away with your duties and what your kind of place in the team is. But yeah, certainly this wouldn't be a bad thing. We know about Sergio Conceição and his kind of profile. He's not going to be a person that is going to allow people to not do or work hard for the team. And it wouldn't surprise me if they're already working on what could be the next strategy. Could it be introducing Alex Jimenez in his place? Because we know previously he was deployed in that left wing position and he did pretty much better in that respect as well. So it would not surprise me if there is a rotation going on as well in due course. So let's see. But yeah, certainly the signs about Rashford potentially signing is an interesting one because I don't think any of us expected Rashford to be linked with AC Milan at this stage.
I really love the idea of him at Milan. I'll be honest. I really like the idea of him rocking up at AC Milan. Apart from the fact he's going to Arsenal to rescue our season, I really like the idea that he might turn up at Milan. And Andrea, before we move on, Zortea doing his Azzurri chances no harm with another eye-catching goal. Just another great performance from him in a big game, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's consistency now we're seeing as well. And we're seeing it at all ends of the pitch, even defensively. I just love the passion when he kept winning those tackles and stuff. He's giving everything. And it's just, he's got all of it's going right for him. Like, he's got to be in that squad. He has to be. He's been phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely delighted for him. Always enjoy seeing him score. And yeah, another disappointing result for Milan. But yeah, like you said, I think it's just a bit after the Lord Mayor's show a little bit. They were really, really pleased with what happened out in Saudi and just kind of let it get away from them a bit. But we're going to go from that thrilling 1-1 to another thrilling 1-1 as Torino won, Juve won. Adam, I didn't want to say it out loud, and that's why we didn't talk about it on the pod about could Torino win this one. But as it got to the 70th, 80th minute, and they were genuinely pushing, I did allow myself out loud to go, oh, they might do it, which then therefore meant that they didn't do it.
It didn't
right?
happen.
It's never going to happen for Torino, is it? It's never going to happen.
We can't even whisper it. That's the levels we have to get to. No, unfortunately, it just doesn't seem like it's ever going to happen, and I don't think it will happen with the kind of squad that they've got assembled at the moment. I just don't. There's never ever been a time where I've ever felt like with a Torino side that they could get a result. But I suppose if there's a time to really push for that result, it's definitely these times with this Juventus squad, because that was dreadful from a Juventus perspective. First 10 minutes, okay, and then they do the traditional thing of sitting back, sloppy passing, sloppy transitions, really struggling to get any momentum. And they were lucky. If there was a better quality side against them, I think they get demolished quite easily. I mean, this wasn't a great Juventus side. They were missing Vlahovic. Even the kind of makeshift kind of attack that was deployed, we have to start maybe questioning the likes of Cup Miners and what he's actually contributing to this squad. A lot of money was spent on him. There's rumours even after this match that Giuntoli and Motta came to heads about the way they're playing, I assume, at this stage. I think there's a lot riding on this kind of projects at the moment. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting kind of next few weeks to see if they back Motta in terms of these kind of strategy of getting players in, what type of players they're going to bring in. And ultimately, are these kind of makeshifts? They're not. It doesn't feel to me anyway. It doesn't sound like these are long-term signings. These are people that are going to be brought in just to fill in the gaps at the moment until they can actually feasibly sell some of the players. That's why we're hearing the rumours of Douglas Luiz, for example, being sold back to the Premier League, and it's an open market for Vlahovic because no one wants him. That's the state we're working with at the moment in time. This is not a great Juventus squad. But equally, when I was looking at it, they haven't lost a game. They've just drawn so many games. They are becoming the Udinese of this league, right? Where they're just drawing games, 6 wins all season. That's why they're getting frustrated, is because they're just drawing far too many games. But yeah, I mean, what do you do? Do you kind of just bring in the next gen to replace the whole squad? Because I think they could probably do better. The players that have been deployed, Savona, for example, played so much better than Danilo over the last 2 to 3 seasons, I'd say. So there needs to be some sort of rethink in terms of strategy. But the problem is, I think it's down to the money side of things. I think Motta's an easy target, but equally, it's his tactics, it's the way he's playing. And unfortunately, it's very much side to side, but there's no kind of output. There is nothing that you can get behind. A bit like we had the conversation on the English podcast about Arteta. At least he's trying to create something different, whereas here, you just don't get the sense of that. I think Motta is really struggling to get something out of this group of players, and yeah, something's got to give. I don't know what it is though, Rory.
Yeah, I feel like he still hasn't nailed down the role for Coop Miners. I still think they don't know what he's meant to do in that team. Like, I think, because at Atalanta, he was that, running into the box, shots from distance, like dynamic midfielder, like all action. And I've not seen any of that at Juve. Like, it looked here like he was kind of switching between him and Luis on who was taking the attacking roles. Luis is not an attacking midfielder from any aspect that I've ever seen. Like, I don't feel like they've ever really locked down that role for him. So then how is Coop Miners meant to thrive if he doesn't have a well-defined role? And then maybe Giuntoli's turning around and going, look, I bought this guy. You wanted this guy. Now use him, right? Like, he did so well at Atalanta. Use him like that. Like, so I think they need to really lock that down, because when you spend that much on a player and he's meant to be one of your, like, I hate to use the American term, but I can't think of how else to say it now, but one of your franchise players, right? One of the big names that's selling shirts. That has to be defined as to what his role is going to be. So I think that is the first thing of, like, if he's going to be a regular, then what is he there to do? With Vlahovic, I don't know. You have to just stick with him. You've got no choice. Like, you just have to. You have to try and figure that out. But I think with with this Juve project, we've talked about it before. They've gone for a long-term view, but are wanting short-term results. So they've gone, right, we're going to completely change the way the club works. We're not going to buy big-name players anymore, not really. We're going to bring through our own players. We're going to bring through a young, exciting manager. And this is going to be a project for the future. This is going to be Juve domination in 2030, whatever it is, right? But then they're expecting a title challenge in 2025. And it's like, well, that's not how it works. You can't, like, you have to have both of those. You have to have the short term and
you have
long
to have
term. And if you
elements.
put it all into the long term, then you have to wait for the long term results. So I think Motta isn't massively being helped by the management, but Andrea, Motta also, as Adam said, isn't getting the most out of this. Is this the fact that it's a step up in club? There's more expectations. Like when Bologna play pretty football, people don't expect it, so you get a pat on the back, whereas at Juve, people expect a bit more. Or do you think he's not been able to get his message across to the players like he was at Bologna?
I think the squad itself has a lot of adapting to do, and I think that doesn't help as well. Like you look at this game, you look at McKennie having to play left back. You're looking at Douglas Luiz, who's literally out the door, but has to start the game.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at sub bench. You only were able to name like 6 subs, and like 2 of them came on that were actually first team level quality. Like you've got Vlahovic who's not performing, and then you've got no one to replace him. Gonzalez has to go up front, and Bangula has to play on the left when Yildiz should be there, and they should have someone on the right. Like for me, there's like so many gaps in this team that he has to already adapt to that, which is one issue. I think the other issue is that does he just accept that how he wants to play at the moment can't work with this current squad? Does he have to kind of revert to not Allegri ball per se, but like just maybe let's be solid, let's have 3 at the back, let's bring it out, let's use our wing backs because our wing backs can be really solid. We can bring Yildiz more into this game. We need to get Yildiz on the ball more. Like I just feel like he's not adapting to the team enough and being too strong on his own identity. And I think you can't really risk that at this point in time when you're so close. Like there's a real thin line Juventus are at the moment because they've drawn so many. They could either go one way and challenge for 4th or go complete the other way and end up finishing mid-table. So it's on a real thin line. And that's when you feel like as a manager, you should start to realize, right, we need to, surely at this point, you should be realizing we need to kind of change this because the style, the system is not working. And I think it will work eventually. And I think he's still the right man despite everything. But when you're still persisting with something that's not working, questions have to come. And I agree with you. I think it's a project that's going to be 5 years' time. They're going to challenge for the title. At the same time, the results need to happen. There needs to be clear signs that we're a Champions League team. We're going to be in and around it. And eventually we're building and, so on and so on. Again, what you said about Koopmeiners was another prime example. This man's like one of the best midfielders in Serie A by far, I got to say, in his role. And he's not getting anything out of him. So there's all these question marks on all these players. You're not getting anything out of them. And they're your top players. And then, like I said, then it's like, this is why we see too much pressure on Vlahovic, not scoring, no one to replace him. Yildiz might have an off game. There's no one to back him up. It's an ongoing circus. So I kind of feel for him, but at the same time, he knows what he has, and he should be a manager enough to be like, right, it's not going my way. My football's not working as I want it to do, but let's try and do this, change it up, and see. And then next year, bring your players in and maybe start playing again that system. But letting it just slide is concerning. And what I didn't like the most about this from Motta was another red card being sent off. For me, I know it sounds small, but I feel like for me, if I'm supporting a team and then my manager keeps getting sent off like that, being ill-disciplined, it's such a bad look, and it already makes you think like we could lose this game. If we don't win this game, it goes on him not being there, barking his orders, and I think that's frustrating. That's another frustrating aspect. So for me, there's a lot of question marks on Motta, and after this game, I feel like this is the question marks. I'm starting to see them even more now. I was giving him the benefit of the doubt, but I'm starting to see now that if he don't change this, it could get worse.
It doesn't scream everything's all right when he keeps getting sent off, right? It doesn't scream like I'm in control. But yeah, I think that was a really alarming moment. But both him and Vanoli were sent off because they both just went absolutely mental. The clip of Vanoli throwing his water bottle was so cinematic. It was incredible. But yeah, I think it's just really. You made a really good point in terms of like their season really is on a knife's edge, because if you do suddenly lose a game, which is going to happen at some point, right, and then you've got 12 draws and 1 loss, it suddenly looks really, really bad. The only credit in his bank somehow, like we said, is that 0 in the losses. But I saw someone trying to take a dig at Arsenal, being like, "Oh, Juve are about to do an Arsenal." Like, yeah, they need to win the next 19 matches in a row. Like, good luck with that one. Like, but yeah, they not looking good there. But Adam, we do need to very quickly say a bit of credit to Torino. It was a great goal from Vlasic. They stuck out. They stuck at it. I thought Richie was fantastic, and arguably they deserved to win the game. I think as they pushed on much more towards the end and had a few chances.
Yeah, I think, like I say, it was just the lack of quality from a Torino perspective. But they did have chances, even when they went behind initially. Linetti had the opportunity to equalise from that corner straight away. So there were chances in the game for them, but they are missing Duvan, aren't they? Duvan's a big, like, kind of figure for them. And if they do manage to get better, that might help their causes going forward. Be interesting to see if Beto deal actually carries on, given Moisey likes to have a target man. So I wonder if he'll give him a bit more faith. But yeah, I think that could be where Torino gets to push on. I've got full of optimism for Torino in the second half, providing they can get another quality striker, it's fair to say, because I think the reliance has been very much on Shea Adams, and whilst he has delivered some early delights, it's too much for him to be expected to do it for a whole season. So yeah, let's see.
No, absolutely. That Zapata injury absolutely knackered them. But that is now 3 draws in a row for Torino. So they're copying their cross-city rivals. And they have Fiorentina next. So who knows what could happen there. Let's go to the next game. And let's talk about the next one we wanted to talk about was, Adam, Empoli 1, Lecce 3. Not just because Kustovic got 2 goals for me this weekend against Tommy in Fantacalcio, which was delicious. Tommy messaging me the line, Kustovic hasn't even scored 2 goals in his fucking dreams. How has he done that? This isn't the only reason we're talking about this, but Empoli, the vultures are circling and they're being picked apart, and their season is kind of falling apart.
We did predict there would be a point in the season where Roberto De Versa will headbutt someone. It will be coming soon, right?
Yeah.
But no, on a genuine point, Empoli do feel like they're imploding. In that first half, like I've said in the summary, it wouldn't have been flattering on Lecce if they were winning this game at 4-0 in the first half, because they had chances to. And I think that's a lot of credit to Lecce and Marco Giampaolo, for the way that he's gone about it, especially with Lecce. There's such a good group of players at Lecce. They just need to be coached really well. And they seem to be getting a balance. I've been really impressed by the form of Morente, who has been scoring of late as well. He feels like he's gone under the radar again in terms of a signing, but he's genuinely a really good player as well. But we all obviously know about the likes of Dorgu and what he can contribute from the wings as well. It was very much a high intense press from that Lecce midfield that made Empoli make those mistakes, and there were a load of them in that first half. But the finishes from Kristovic, both goals were absolutely outstanding from him. And I think it goes back Andrea's point about Kristovic maybe going to a team that is of a high caliber within Serie A. He deserves his chance now. And potentially that could be something that Lecce will hold on to, and at least until the end of the season. Then we'll see if Kristovic does earn that move. But I wouldn't say he wouldn't look out of place at a place like Fiorentina, for example. He could be someone that could really do well. But again, that's the difference of, say, someone like a Lecce versus a Monza at this stage. They've got quality players and a lot of credit. But for Empoli, yeah, it's a bit of a worrying time, isn't it? Because they did so well at the early stages. They were kind of outside of that top 10 mix as it was. And now they seem like they're slowly evaporating down the table. We're talking offline about Vasquez maybe being linked with a move out as well, which would be quite a big one because he's been really quite top for them from a defensive point of view. Fazzini, we're all a fan of his. Yeah, it just feels like this Empoli side will be torn apart a bit like the Hellas of previous seasons. So let's see, but I'm just not confident that they've got the ability in the transfer market to pull in talents that could help them out the rest of the season.
Yeah, with Empoli, it always seems to be young, exciting players that they get, which is fantastic, but they're not great at having players that deliver now, unless it's that Polish bloke whose name I've forgotten.
Shirkovsky.
That's it, exactly. And Ghazi is still there doing his job at the wing back. He's still getting the job done. Another assist for him in this game. But yeah, they're very much kind of the young, up-and-coming team. Like, the goalkeeper they had to put in was 19 years old, Seghetti. Like, it's not fantastic. And obviously, yeah, we talked about Lecce's attackers. Kustovic, I still insist, is a very good player there. Not a great goal scorer, but a scorer of great goals, as the cliche goes, right? All his goals always look fantastic. But yeah, huge win for Lecce. And in the table, I was counting Empoli out of it, but they are like 2 points out of the relegation zone. And now that's 5 games without a win. The slump really needs to be arrested soon because you can get sucked into there quick. But let's kind of move on from that one, I think, and let's talk about Roma 2, Bologna 2. Andrea Sailormaker's incredible season continues on. He's becoming a really key player for Roma. It's Claudio Ranieri's really getting the best out of him, eh?
Yeah, surprisingly as well. I feel like we were all focused on like Manu Kone being the guy, like these type of players that were doing well. But yeah, he stepped up, and again, it was a performance from Roma that was quite similar to what we've seen before. It was quite poor, no ideas, kind of slow, sloppy, and giving away the ball too much. And they should have lost that game. I don't know how they managed to claw it back, but he's been the bright spark. And again, in that game, if it weren't for him, they wouldn't have come. They wouldn't have got a point in that game. It was that simple. That's how important he was in that game. So, but yeah, he's looked really good. He's always been someone that has the energy. He knows how to play. He's got the skill set, the mindset to kind of be dynamic in that final third as well. He's got an engine on him as well. Like he's always up and down that touch line. So yeah, he's a terrific player. So and it's good to see Ranieri finding the best out of certain players like him now, and that should hopefully start to make some sort of difference for Roma.
Because this was a big game in terms of the fight for European places. It was like, and obviously it can come down to head at the end of the season. So it's there was a bit on the line for both of these sides, and they kind of really went for it, to be fair. But Adam, a lovely moment, Ferguson getting a goal after his injury, coming back, back with the captain's armband, back in midfield. We've missed him, right?
Oh, massively. His influence from a Bologna point of view alone is so critical to their season as well. Yeah, it's great to see him back in the fold. Obviously, that was a terrible injury to come back from as well. So to have him back in the action is really important. And it might help revitalise their season in the second half. You know, it might help them get over the line. But I think there is still this same old Italiano question marks about seeing off games, being able to be more clinical in front of games. I did make a note of this though, in terms of goals scored in this particular period. If you look at the kind of top end mix from Bologna upwards, they are one of the lowest scoring sides, with Orsolini scoring 6 goals alone. And then if you compare that to Roma, they've scored 2 more goals than them, but they're lower placed. So this kind of summarizes the situation that Bologna find themselves, that they're getting the points, they're getting the victories, but maybe not scoring enough goals. And that's a stark contrast to the previous season. Granted, they had different players and a different coach, but I think that goes to show you the contrasting styles of Italiano versus Motta and why we may still see Bologna struggle this season.
I think he's also having to kind of blend a new attack together, right? There's a lot of players that haven't really played that much together. So you've got Dominguez, who again looked lively, again, really exciting player. Ndoye, who's had some good moments this season, but again, kind of finding his feet in the league. And then Delinga, a big moment for him. He was they spent quite a bit of money on him, but he got the goal. It felt like you could see the weight being lifted off his shoulders a little bit, the relief on his face. So he's kind of trying to figure out how that attack works and where the main players are going to be. Obviously, Castro is usually out there as well. So yeah, as well as Italiano not exactly being the most exciting attacking coach, I think he is still trying to figure out where the pieces go and how it works. But it was just massive for them to get the to not lose this. And Andrea, a big moment for Dovbyk, as he does score the last minute penalty to ensure there is a point. There's been a lot of pressure on him as well. We are seeing marked improvement from him under Ranieri, right?
Yeah, and I think obviously Ranieri knows that he's the main guy. They've got to somehow fit him in this team. And I think we're now starting to see him play more of an important role in terms of how they structure their plays in the attacking third. But also, I feel like he's got more confidence because of that, because they're starting to actually play to his style a bit more, I feel like. And we're starting to see him come into his own, and especially that last minute penalty, the pressure on him. And I've got to say, that was such a cool penalty. So it just shows perhaps there is some confidence there. And hopefully he starts to see more kind of service. We're saying Salamakers before, we're seeing quite a few players now step up and provide some service for him as well. So I think it's positive for him. And yeah, the main thing is that the goal he scored, the penalty, was a confident look, and hopefully that he can continue that in the next games.
Nice. And unfortunately for Pellegrini, this was exactly what he didn't want to happen after the Lazio game, a really disappointing performance from him. There was a moment where the Roma team were breaking and he got the ball, and rather than just turn around and put like a pass forward, try and feed someone in, he just turned back to his defence and passed it backwards. And I was like, that's not what we need to be seeing from you, man. That's like, that psychologically you're still not fully there yet. And I think it was a really disappointing performance from him. I was watching him actively being like, right, what are you going to do now, man? And just, it wasn't there, unfortunately. But that's that game. Elsewhere, Inter somehow got the most boring 1-0 win against Venezia with Darmian getting a goal. Napoli won 2-0 against Hellas Verona. Adam, you want to talk about this quickly? Montipo own goal. And Khvica, the boy can't stop scoring. He's in my Fantacalcio team. Unbelievable from the lad. Napoli just getting the job done, but a terrible game.
Let's rephrase that. I didn't really want to talk about this, but we'll summarise it in very fine 5 minutes. Yeah, it was really clinical goals from a Napoli perspective. Hellas really didn't offer much in this game. Well taken effort from Di Lorenzo. Fantastic effort, in fairness. It just comes off the back of the post and hits Montipo into the net. But yeah, and Greece's goal was the highlight of the game, it's fair to say. If anything, credit-wise, Napoli did control the tempo. They did look the most threatening. McTominay had a chance, for example. But it was a game, for the neutral point of view, I very quickly went to sleep. And if anything, it helped me go to sleep that evening. There wasn't much to shout about. If anything, the only highlight as well was seeing Philip Billing in the crowd. He is now signed from Bournemouth. So he's going to resolve that situation in midfield for Napoli. Whatever that problem is, I don't know what the statement is for that answer. But also, what baffled me when I was messaging you guys offline was Anguissa's contract is out in the summer. How is this guy not being confirmed? And then Rory, this is the topic, isn't it? When we're talking about Napoli, Farah has indicated that he is leaving the club. That was announced by Antonio Conte at the end of this match. What do we make of it? This is the thing. Between us three, I mean, this is really strange timing, right?
It's mad that he's going halfway through the season. It's absolutely mad. The only thing I can think is that him and Conte just really do not get on. I think it's quite clear that they don't like each other. And maybe they're just thinking, right, cut my losses. Kvara really obviously hasn't been particularly happy there for a while because his contract is ludicrously low for how important he is to that team. And obviously De Laurentiis being De Laurentiis isn't willing to open his wallet that much. I think there's a part of me that I'm really disappointed he's going to PSG. I'm relieved he's not going to Liverpool, and I'm even more disappointed he's not going to Arsenal. But I think there's a part of me that just thinks, yeah, go and get the money, man, because you deserve this big wage. You deserve to be the big name player at a team where they're going to pay you 300 grand a week and you're going to be the big star. I think he should have been treated better by Napoli post the Scudetto. You could say the same about Osimhen as well, and there needs to be a conversation about how Napoli have treated these players post Scudetto. and even the manager, right? But I think, yeah, for him, it's just the move that he needs. I just wish he wasn't going to PSG. Like, Andrea, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think it's the same feel. Like I just feel like such an exciting player. Like I would have seen him at somewhere else, like the Premier League, even La Liga per se. I just think the time is strange. It just seems like he definitely must be going. Like there's no way they would have put all this out there
Yeah.
if there isn't concrete talks. So I feel like it's done. It's a big shame for Serie A as well because he's such an exciting player. And he's one of our top players in Serie A that we watch, day in day out. So it's a shame, but I just think the only worry I have is that a move to PSG. We've kind of seen it with the big names when they've gone there. They don't really live up to the hype. Maybe it's because of the quality of the league. Maybe it's because it's not viewed as much as other leagues. I don't know, and I worry that he might lose that spark he had when he joined Napoli, when we just saw him free flowing football, expressing himself. I'm sure he's going to be able to do that because he's too good for that league. But I just worry that he might go into that shadow. What we saw with players like Neymar, even Messi, where he didn't really do as well as he could have. So that's my only concern. But yeah, I think it goes bound to that, though. I think the Napoli situation we're seeing with Osimhen as well. So they must. I think Rory, you're onto something there. I think there's some sort of issue when it comes to keeping these players like happy and motivated to carry on with the project. So question marks
giving
there.
giving them what they've earned. I think like if they've delivered you your first Scudetto in 20 odd years, whatever it is, you have to turn around and say thank you and give them something to show that, not put a racist TikTok up or refuse to fucking renegotiate their contract. Like, I just think that there's obviously a culture there at that club, and we know what De Laurentiis is like, but there's clearly a culture there where only he can be the one that's happy, and if anyone else is happy, he's not. Like, I think there's an interesting thing at PSG because they spent quite a lot of money on Bradley Barcola, and I don't know what this means for Barcola. Arteta, please ask what this means for Barcola. But Adam, how do Napoli replace Kvaratskhelia? Like, you can't just go out and sign another one of him. Like, is there a player in Serie A you're looking at and going, just nick him, or do they have to go back to the Georgian Premier League? I don't know how they replace him.
I don't think there's anyone that's comparable, to be brutally honest. Kvaratskhelia is different in the sense of the way that he glides. He's got a balance. He's got a technique. He's so unique in that respect. He can do the incredible. I've always argued the only element of Kvaratskhealia's game that needs to probably get better is if he was to be more likely to go into the middle of the game, so rather than stick to the wing plays where he's sometimes deployed. I think he needs to expand his game, be a bit more open to kind of playing through the middle as well sometimes. So I think that's the only element that I'd be critical of Kvaratskhealia's game. But I don't think there's anyone that's comparable at this moment in time. I'm not saying he's unique in that respect, but I just think there's no one comparable within Serie A. I just genuinely don't think there's any talents that are very similar or akin to his kind of style of football. There could be comparable ones, I'm thinking maybe like a Danny Olmo, for example, or maybe a Naki Williams, for example, or Nico Williams even. But I just can't see anyone that's very similar to. From a Napoli perspective, I don't think they will go for that style of player anyway. I think Conte is going to go for someone that's a bit more drilled, a bit more
Victor
disciplined
Moses.
in terms of
Victor Moses on six
free
month
transfer
contract
from Luton Town, basically. That's what it's going to be. I can't see Conte being that kind of way inclined. If anything, he's probably going to go to a Nadir Zorti from Calgary. Get someone like him, someone that he knows that could be the future going forwards, that can do the tracking back, and could fit in that system. But yeah, I can't think of anyone obvious.
I'll just, before he leaves the league, I just want to say, I always remember the season he signed. I spent the summer just watching players that were signed and who was coming into the league. And the way my jaw dropped when I watched the highlights of Kvara, and I was like, who the fuck have Napoli just signed? Like, this guy is a monster.
Incredible.
Both feet just knocking him in from 40 yards, just skinning everyone. And I'd never been so excited to see a player in the league. And then he just absolutely lived up to the hype. And I just, for that Scudetto season, that Napoli team, I'll always love it. But just him, the excitement of that first year, and just like
Yeah.
it reminded you of football in the night, not to be like, but it reminds
Yeah,
you of football in the
nostalgic.
90s again when
Yeah.
these random players just appeared and you didn't know everything about them and they were unbelievable. And I just think, what a player. And I really, really, really wish he was going to Arsenal instead. But we're going to take a very quick, well, no, we're not. Elsewhere, very quickly, Vieira continues his very good start to the season with a big 1-0 win over Parma for Genoa. Friendrop getting another goal there. Elsewhere, what were the other ones? I don't think there were any other results. Let me check.
Not
Udinese
massively,
0,
but-
Atalanta 0. That was frigging terrible. Atalanta were atrocious. And Lazio 1, Como 1. Chuana getting sent off. Dia with a lovely goal. But Cutrone equalising for Como. Andrea, very quickly, Lazio, it's all falling apart. They really don't look like a shadow of their early season selves, right?
No, and I gotta say, this is a pod predictor that we did. We all said it. We all said that they didn't have the depth. It was going to slow, and that's what we're seeing. Unfortunately, the style's there. If a bit more signings next season, we could maybe see them challenge up there. But yeah, I think we're going to see more of this happening. Unfortunately for them.
Disappointing for them, but a big point from Como and some big names getting linked to them in this transfer window. It'll be really interesting to see who comes in and out of there. Freneda is over the line or is about to be done. I'm not sure if they got him or not, but I saw that it was very, very close. So it could be an exciting signing for them. But guys, now we're going to take a very quick break. And when we come back, we're going to look forward to the next round of fixtures. We'll see you on the other side. And we're back, and it's time to look forward to the very confusing next round of fixtures. Adam, in Bocca al Lupo, good luck. Let's do it.
Let's start off with, hopefully, listener, you are listening to us on a Tuesday or Tuesday evening, so you've got the prospect of, at 5:30 p.m. UK time, seeing Como at home to Milan, followed by 7:45 Atalanta at home to Juventus. Before on Wednesday evening, we see Inter host Bologna at 7:45. So some feisty games there. That's the kind of games in hand for a lot of these teams. Before we enter the next kind of game week, which is 21 technically, and that starts off on Friday, where Roma host Genoa at 7:45 p.m. kickoff time. Then we move into Saturday's games. Starting off at 2 p.m., we've got Bologna at home to Monza. Before at 5 p.m., we've got a big game, Juventus at home to Milan. But if you thought that could not be topped, we are in for a shocker because at 7:45, Atalanta at home to Napoli, which could be a great game for the neutral before we then land into Sunday's games, and we'll start off at 11:30 a.m. as we see Fiorentina at home to Torino, where Andrea will be hoping for at least more than a point. Anyway, we move into 2 p.m. Calgary host Lecce, and then we've got Parma at home to Venezia. Before at 5 p.m. we've got Hellas Verona at home to Lazio before the big game that evening, 7:45 p.m. at the San Siro as Inter host Empoli. And then we move into Monday's game, which is 7:45 p.m. kickoff time, Como at home to Udinese. And that is your fixture list. Rory, I'm missing that 5:30 p.m. kickoff time on Friday,
On
Mondays.
Monday?
I think
What am I supposed to do?
it feels like since we've been dissing it, they've decided to
They've been
learn
listening.
not to put that. They've been listening.
What am I supposed to do on a Monday afternoon now? I think the schedule is really stacked heavy on Saturday night, with Juve, Milan, and Napoli, Atalanta, and Sunday, Verona, Lazio into Empoli. They really went all in on Saturday evening. But I'm quite excited for Saturday evening now, I'll be honest. Well, listener, thank you as always. We really appreciate you choosing to spend your time with us. Adam, anything to say to the listener before we let them go?
No, but if you could do us one more favor, that is to go on to Apple Podcasts and give us a rating. Obviously, you can rate us on Spotify, but if you could also just drop us a review, that'd be really appreciated because we don't think the current reviews really respectfully cover all of our efforts. So if you could do us that favor, that would be greatly appreciated.
It's aimed at me. It's fine. Adam's doing the speaking because I don't want to tell the guy to piss off. But thank you. Please leave us a review. We will forever love you. As always, on all the social medias except Twitter, we are at Anglo-Italian Pod. On Twitter, we're at Italian Anglo Pod. Make sure to give us a follow on all those. If you're on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button down here. Go and check out the Premier League / FA Cup episode. I have an existential breakdown about Arsenal. That might be of appealing to you. And we will see you next week for the next round of Serie A. Ciao, a dopo.
Ciao, ciao.